Emotions are one of the most powerful forces in human existence. They shape our decisions, influence our relationships, and define our experiences. Whether we feel joy, sadness, anger, or fear, these emotions serve as signals telling us something about the world around us and our place within it. Many people either suppress their emotions or let them dictate their every action. But the key is to understand them, harness their power, and use them as a guide rather than a force of destruction. At their core, emotions exist to help us survive and thrive. They evolved as part of our biological response system, ensuring we respond appropriately to different situations. Fear alerts us to danger, joy encourages social bonding, and anger signals that our boundaries have been crossed. These emotions are not arbitrary, they are deeply embedded in our nature, designed to help us navigate a complex and often unpredictable world. One of the biggest misconceptions about emotions is that they are either good or bad. People tend to label happiness and excitement as positive while viewing sadness and anger as negative. But emotions are not inherently good or bad, they are simply information. What matters is how we interpret and respond to them. Ignoring or suppressing difficult emotions can lead to long-term issues, just as indulging in them recklessly can lead to unnecessary suffering. Understanding emotions means recognizing that they are temporary states, not permanent realities. When we feel overwhelmed by an emotion, it is easy to believe that it will last forever, but emotions rise and fall like waves. Learning to observe them rather than react impulsively allows us to make better decisions and avoid being controlled by fleeting feelings. Our emotions are also deeply connected to our thoughts and beliefs. What we feel is often a response to how we interpret a situation rather than the situation itself. Two people can experience the same event but react completely differently based on their mindset and perspective. This means that by changing our thoughts, we can influence how we feel. Recognizing this connection gives us a greater sense of control over our emotional well-being. Emotions also play a vital role in relationships. They allow us to connect with others, express our needs, and understand what others are experiencing. However, emotions can also create conflict when they are not managed properly. When we react impulsively to emotions rather than understanding them, we risk miscommunication, resentment, and damaged relationships. Learning to regulate emotions helps us navigate social interactions with more wisdom and empathy. Another critical aspect of emotional understanding is learning to differentiate between emotional triggers and actual problems. Often, our emotions are not responding to the present moment but to past experiences that have shaped our reactions. A small criticism from a colleague might trigger deep feelings of inadequacy rooted in childhood experiences. When we understand this, we can start addressing the root cause rather than merely reacting to the surface-level emotion. Emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. It allows us to make decisions based on reason rather than impulse, respond rather than react, and create meaningful connections with others. People with high emotional intelligence tend to navigate life's challenges with greater ease because they understand that emotions are tools rather than obstacles. Learning to regulate emotions does not mean suppressing them. Many people mistakenly believe that emotional control means shutting down feelings, but in reality it means acknowledging emotions without being consumed by them. Healthy regulation involves expressing emotions appropriately, understanding their source, and choosing a response that aligns with long-term goals rather than short-term impulses. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional mastery. If we do not take the time to reflect on our emotions, we risk being controlled by them. Developing self-awareness involves asking ourselves questions like, why am I feeling this way? What triggered this response? Is my reaction proportionate to the situation? This practice helps us become more intentional in how we handle emotions rather than being swept away by them. Emotions can also serve as a compass, guiding us toward what truly matters. If something consistently makes us feel frustrated, it may be a sign that we need to change something in our environment or set better boundaries. If something brings us joy, it may indicate that we are aligned with our values and purpose. When we listen to our emotions with curiosity rather than judgment, they become powerful tools for growth. Ultimately, understanding emotions allows us to live with greater clarity, connection, and purpose. Instead of being at war with our emotions or letting them rule us, we can learn to work with them, using their energy to drive us forward. When we master this skill, we gain not only emotional stability, but also a deeper sense of fulfillment and control over our lives. Life is filled with uncertainty, and much of our suffering comes from trying to control things that are simply beyond our reach. The truth is, We cannot dictate how others behave, what circumstances arise, or how the world unfolds. However, we do have control over how we respond, how we interpret situations, and the actions we choose to take. The ability to distinguish between what is within our power and what is not is one of the most liberating realizations a person can have. And many people waste tremendous amounts of energy trying to change things they have no influence over. They obsess over the opinions of others, dwell on past mistakes, or feel anxious about events they have no way of altering. This creates frustration, resentment, and a sense of helplessness. When we fixate on what we cannot control, we surrender our own power, allowing external circumstances to dictate our inner state. One of the most powerful shifts in mindset is understanding that control is limited, but influence is not. You may not be able to control how someone treats you, but you can influence the dynamic by setting boundaries, choosing your response, or removing yourself from toxic situations. You may not be able to control the economy, but you can control how you prepare for financial uncertainty. This shift from control to influence allows you to take meaningful action rather than feeling stuck. Focusing on what we can control leads to a greater sense of empowerment. When we direct our attention toward our thoughts, behaviors, and efforts, we gain clarity and direction. We cannot control whether an opportunity arises, but we can control whether we are prepared for it. We cannot control whether we succeed immediately, but we can control our persistence, our learning, and our adaptability. This mindset fosters resilience, allowing us to face adversity with confidence rather than despair. Much of our anxiety stems from trying to control outcomes rather than focusing on the process. We want guarantees that things will go our way, that people will behave as we expect, or that life will unfold according to our plans. But life is unpredictable, and no amount of worry will change that. The key is to shift our focus from outcomes to actions, doing what we can with what we have, regardless of the uncertainty that lies ahead. Letting go of control does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means accepting reality as it is, rather than resisting it. It means choosing to focus on solutions rather than problems, on progress rather than perfection. This acceptance is not about giving up, it is about channeling our energy into areas where it can make the most impact rather than being drained by frustration over things we cannot change. The people around us are perhaps the greatest reminder of what we cannot control. We cannot force someone to love us, respect us, or understand us. We cannot control their decisions, their actions, or their beliefs. What we can control is how we communicate, how we set boundaries, and how we choose to engage with them. Accepting this reality prevents unnecessary conflicts and allows us to focus on building relationships based on mutual respect rather than control. The past is another aspect of life that is completely outside of our control. No matter how much we analyze, regret, or wish things had happened differently, the past remains unchanged. What we can control is how we learn from it, how we interpret it, and how we allow it to shape our future. Holding on to past mistakes, disappointments, or betrayals only robs us of the present. Letting go does not mean forgetting, it means refusing to let the past dictate who we are today. Recognizing what we can and cannot control also applies to the way we view failure. Failure is often seen as a reflection of personal inadequacy, but in reality, it is often influenced by external factors beyond our control. Timing, circumstances, and even luck play a role in success. The key is to focus on the lessons we can extract from failure rather than allowing it to define us. When we shift our perspective, failure becomes a stepping stone rather than an obstacle. Another powerful realization is that we cannot control how others perceive us. We can present ourselves with authenticity, integrity, and kindness, but ultimately, people will see us through their own lens, one shaped by their experiences, biases, and beliefs. Seeking validation from others is a losing battle because it is based on something we cannot control. The only validation that truly matters is the one that comes from within. When we accept that we cannot control everything, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress and frustration. This does not mean we do not care about outcomes. It simply means we approach them with a mindset of adaptability rather than desperation. We trust in our ability to navigate whatever comes our way, rather than exhausting ourselves trying to predict or manipulate every detail of the future. This shift brings peace, focus, and a renewed sense of purpose. Ultimately, recognizing what we can and cannot control is one of the most important lessons in personal growth. It allows us to invest our energy wisely, cultivate resilience, and approach life with a sense of calm rather than fear. It is a daily practice, one that requires self-awareness, patience, and the willingness to let go of the illusion of control in favor of true inner strength. Boundaries are essential for maintaining emotional well-being, protecting our energy, and fostering healthy relationships. Without clear boundaries, we risk becoming overwhelmed, resentful, and drained by the demands and expectations of others. Establishing healthy boundaries is not about shutting people out. It is about defining what is acceptable and what is not, ensuring that our needs, values, and personal space are respected. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection or conflict. They believe that saying no is selfish or that setting limits will make them appear unkind. But failing to set boundaries often leads to frustration, exhaustion, and damaged relationships. When we consistently prioritize the needs of others over our own, we erode our sense of self, ultimately harming both ourselves and those around us. Boundaries are a reflection of self-respect. They communicate to others that we value ourselves enough to protect our time, energy, and emotional well-being. When we fail to set boundaries, we send the message that our needs are secondary, leading to relationships where we are constantly giving while receiving little in return. Healthy boundaries create balance, ensuring that interactions are based on mutual respect rather than obligation or guilt. One of the most important aspects of boundaries is learning to say no without guilt. Many people agree to things they do not want to do simply to avoid disappointing others. But every time we say yes to something that does not align with our priorities, we are saying no to something that does. Saying no is not a rejection of the person. It is a declaration of what is best for us. The ability to say no with confidence is a crucial skill in maintaining emotional and mental health.